My name is Rana Dutt. I'm with a company called Softel, which is a systems integrator and value-added reseller of open source PBX systems. So obviously the whole field of open source PBXs is very new. So the company is also quite new. Before we were more doing private consulting work, custom software development that had to do with telephony. Now we've taken this new PBX called Asterisk, and I've started to offer that as a solution to customers. How many of you have heard of Asterisk? Oh, very good. Okay, so the publicity machine is working well. You probably know that Mark Spencer, who's the founder of Digium, was the lead developer of Asterisk. And through a grassroots effort, as any open source initiative takes place, he was able to get a whole crew of developers together who were able to come up with a really nifty PBX. I think that what I would like to focus on in this talk is that this Asterisk PBX is ready for prime time in terms of serious mission-critical deployments. And case in point is the fact that our solution, based on Asterisk, was accepted by a municipal government, the town of Manchester in Connecticut. This is not Manchester, England, okay? It's Manchester, Connecticut, but it's a town which is about 60,000 population, a little bit west of the border with Massachusetts, near Hartford. We have a deployment there that's scaling up to about 1,500 users, making it the largest open source voice over IP deployment of any government or municipality. Although I'm not sure, I think even in the private space it might be among the largest as well. Okay. Some of the things I want to touch on is some of the cost savings that were achieved by going with Asterisk solution. What the solutions architecture is, I want to show that with an open source system like this, it can scale and it can be distributed across multiple servers. One of the things that we added to Asterisk is we made it fault tolerant. So, when you're deploying something mission critical like this, your customer wants to make sure that if any one PBX server goes down, that people don't lose their phone calls. Okay, that's one of the worst things that can happen. And Asterisk, of course, never came with a fancy GUI. And a critical factor for success for any piece of software these days is to have an easy-to-use front end, point and click. And we added that piece of the puzzle to the software also. So by doing all this, I think we've made this into a system that can be commercially deployed and has a lot of robustness and can be accepted by the community at large. Okay. First of all, we want to answer the question, why did this town and why would anybody want to migrate to IP telephony, especially if they already have a phone system in place? One of the drivers for this town of Manchester was cost. They have a system called Centrex. Anybody familiar with Centrex? Okay. Centrex is a system that your old phone company would offer you as a small business. They'd say, don't bother spending $15,000 on a PBX that you manage on your premises. We'll give you some phones, and these phones will be connected to our kind of a PBX, off in the network somewhere. And we'll charge you X number of dollars per month per phone. Okay? So this was an attractive solution to many businesses. They'd say, okay, good, we don't have to spend all this money up front. But as time goes on, if you start having 20, 30, 50, 100 phones, those per month, per phone costs start adding up. Okay? So Manchester found those costs were becoming prohibitive. They really needed to double the number of phones and outside lines that they had in service. The thing that precipitated or made easier this migration to IP telephony was that they had an advanced fiber net that was linking all the town's buildings. They had already invested a lot of money in building a good high-speed network that connected all the town's buildings. So they were ready for VoIP. Also, they wanted some custom voice applications. For example, if someone in the town has more than 40 buildings, okay? Someone in the town calls 911, they want to make sure that the police dispatchers get the correct address, okay? Not just the correct address, but they want to make sure that they know even what floor of the building the call came from. More precise pinpointing of the source of that 911 call. This is something that your phone company can't really do very well for you, but your PBX can, as it turns out. So we can develop custom software that'll map the location of the phone to their room and give that precise information to the police and emergency units. So they know exactly which floor and which aisle to go to in case of an emergency. There's other applications. For example, they wanted a dialer that could all at once call a whole bunch of parents, notifying them that school's closed, for example. Okay, it's going to snow, so school will be closed. I understand that, yeah, it's hard to identify with school closings due to snow here in Hawaii, but it's a common problem in the northern U.S. Right? So, and again, we can develop an application like this relatively easily. We take a database of phone numbers, and we can have a recorded message saying, okay, school is going to close at such and such a time. And the PBX will just go through that database of numbers and automatically dial all those people and play a recording saying school is closed, okay? So these kinds of custom applications are easy to develop with a platform that's open source, because you have tens of different languages that you can implement these things in. There's one other interesting application that they talked about, which is that a teacher, let's say with a Cisco phone, could take attendance in class by going through each student's name. See, each student's name would appear on the display of the Cisco phone. And they would look at each student and say yes or no. And then at the end, when all the attendance was taken, the system would go out and dial the parents of the students who were absent. Okay, so this was like, I'm glad this kind of a thing was not available when I was going to school. Okay, so anyway, but these kinds of things were possible with this kind of an application. Okay, what's the annual cost savings achievable by something like this? Figure each Centrix phone was costing them more than $300 a year. Okay. So they had 750 phones in place, so they were paying more than $250,000 a year, almost $250,000 a year. And they only got 60 outside lines for what they're paying. Okay. So we said, replace all those Centrix phones with 4 T1 voice T1 trunks called PRI trunks. And those trunks are only going to cost you $25,000 a year. So you're going to save $200,000 a year on your phone bill by going with this voice over IP solution. Okay? That was very compelling to them. Not only were they going to do that, not only were they going to save the $200,000, they're going to double their capacity in the process. Okay? They're going to go from 60 outside lines to the 4 T1 PRI trunks can handle 92 conversations simultaneously. Okay, so they're going to increase their capacity as well. So what the town of Manchester did is they put out a bid spec, or an RFP, where they specified what they wanted. And this is some of the things that they wanted. 1,500 IP phones. They wanted at least 100 outside lines. They wanted adapters for their old POTS phones. They wanted power over Ethernet. So, you could put in a unit where your phones don't need to take their power from the wall. If your phone can take the power off the Ethernet cable, then all of a sudden, some interesting things become possible. First of all, if you power your rack with a UPS, uninterruptible power supply, that if you have a power outage, then your UPS bridges the power and all your phones stay powered through that power outage. Okay, so the old knock that you lose your phone service if your power goes out doesn't need to apply in a case like this. Right, right. Yeah, exactly. So these are some of the things that they wanted. They wanted those Polycom phones in the conference rooms, and they wanted, of course, they wanted voicemail, but they wanted voicemail to email, integrated unified messaging. AA is automated attendant. They wanted, prompts and menus and things like that. And very importantly, they wanted the system to be robust, no single point of failure. If any one box went down, they still want their phones to be able to make and receive phone calls. So can Asterisk do all this for them? And the answer is yes. They got responses to their bid spec from various legacy vendors. So in this case, it's not Microsoft that's the entrenched supplier. It's names like Cisco, Nortel, Avaya. They all bid. Okay. And with these legacy PBX VARs, it's like there's all this mystique over them because you think that it's very complicated to do a PBX, and they spread a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, as do all these vendors, and so they make it look very extremely like difficult. The solution. The other thing that they do is they license the software. So first they ask you how many users do you have. And if they say 1,500, well, what they do is they multiply a software license per user. So typically $500 per user, and that adds up real quick. Okay, so because of that, they were bidding $750,000 to $1 million, more than $1 million, to supply the town of Manchester with their phones and their PBXs. Okay. Now remember, the town stood to save about 200 grand a year. So that means that the return on investment would take them almost 5 years. Okay? I don't know. A lot of towns they're not going to go for that. They're already strapped for their budget, and they're hurting because they have half the phones that they need. They need to double the phones. So they decided to go with our solution, with the Asterisk-based solution. Not just low cost, of course, was a factor. Our bid came in at less than half of these kinds of numbers, but they didn't want to be locked into a single vendor for the phones. Okay, that's the great thing about Asterisk, is that it doesn't care what kind of standard IP phones you have. You have a Cisco phone, it works. You got a Polycom phone, it works. You got a $60 Sipura Linksys phone, that works too. Okay, so you're not tied to a single vendor. If you go with Cisco, Cisco's going to push their Cisco phones, and those are not cheap. Avaya, same way, they'll push the Avaya phones on you. Okay, here you have at least a couple of dozen manufacturers of SIP phones that work because they're built according to the SIP standard. So that's a very important factor. Third reason they went with us is because since it's an open platform, it's easy to build those custom applications we talked about. The 911, the mass outbound dialer for notifications, classroom attendance, things of that nature. Here's a map of the town of Manchester's buildings. The ones marked in yellow are the schools. So you see a lot of schools spread over the whole town. The dark blue ones are the town administrative offices, and the pink ones are the fire and police departments. By the way, it was a hard sell to sell this to the police department, because naturally, they take a lot of these 911 calls, and we decided we'd keep the system that takes the 911 calls. We wouldn't replace, but we would still have them using our PBX to make the outbound calls. The rest of the town would convert completely to Asterisk. So we decided to put one group of servers in the police station, another group of servers in the old Public Works building. Oh, by the way, you see these circles? Those represent the high-speed fiber network that they had in place. Okay? So they already had this nice infrastructure, the fiber rings encircling some of the buildings in the town that facilitated this whole voice over IP transition. Here's what we did for redundancy. We put 3 servers in the police station on the left-hand side of the diagram, and another 3 servers in the public works building on the right-hand side. The gateways, which are called GW1 and GW2, terminate the T1 trunks for the voice. And there's full redundancy there. The 2 PBXs, of course, are load balanced, okay? And then there's 2, even though those servers are called VM1 and VM2 for voicemail, they're not dedicated to voicemail. They also do PBX functions as well. So really, the load of those 1,500 IP phones is spread across those 4 servers, plus there's 2 gateways to connect to the T1 trunks. Okay, and that diagram shows the other things, the DNS servers that are required. Now here's what happens in a failover or a failure situation. Let's say that the first gateway goes down for some reason. Well, we can still route calls from the IP phones to the other gateway, okay, because they're all connected by the network. So the failure of one gateway doesn't hurt the phone service. What happens if one of the PBXs goes down? Again, that doesn't hurt because the phones know they're registered to a particular PBX. And so when the PBX that they're registered to goes down, the phones have the smarts built into them through the magic of DNS to find another server to register with. So again, the PBX server might go down, but you can still continue to make calls. Right? So that's the failover design. Oh yeah, the phone company will reroute those calls to the other one because it detects the red alarm condition. Yeah. Here's some technical details on how we actually did the failover. I'm not going to go over it unless there's interest, but essentially it's based on something called DNS SRV, and these different domains can be created. The way the load balancing works is that, since there's 1,500 phones, approximately 25% of the phones are registered to each server. So, each server is going to have about 400 phones registered to it. And that works just fine. The servers tend to be like dual Xeon type machines with 2 gigs of RAM. And they can handle that load pretty well. Asterisk would not be viable in a commercial setting without some sort of a GUI, some kind of management interface. And so Signate has come up with a GUI called Sigman, and that works pretty well. All the data is kept in MySQL, of course, another open source product. Okay, and Asterisk works very well with the MySQL database. This is a GUI snapshot of the Sigman interface for Asterisk. Here's another snapshot of what you fill out when you add a new user. It's all pretty intuitive. In order to keep the data in sync across multiple servers, we used replication in MySQL. So, there's a master-slave type of relationship between all the different servers, and the servers just simply replicate the contents of the database from its master. The phones that we recommended were the Polycom IP501s. These are really nice phones. Excellent speakers, good displays. And by the way, these phones have something interesting built into them, instant messaging. So if you have one of these phones on your desk, you can have a buddy list, and you can see whether the people that are your buddies are on a call or whether they're away or whatever. So if you're on a phone and you want to step away from your desk because you're at a meeting, you can set your status to I'm away. So now, before you even pick up the phone, you can see whether the person you're going to call is there or not. So it's presence. It saves a lot of these, phone tag and voicemail tag that people play these days. There are many other features too, which not going to get into, but these phones support XML, so you can create custom applications, such as the school attendance application I talked about. For the conference room, we suggested these Polycom SoundStation 100s. Again, they're very good in terms of the speakerphone and the quality there. For power over Ethernet, you got these mid-spans that you can use to inject the power. And these are the adapters that we use for old-fashioned phones, the POTS phones, to convert to the Ethernet. They could deploy these. Yep, you can convert a fax machine too. Mm-hmm. Okay, besides the phones that we recommended, the town said, can we go even cheaper than that? And so they tried a whole bunch of cheap, really cheap phones. And they found out there's a price to pay for cheapness, okay? Yeah, I mean, this Grandstream GXP 2000 phone is about $50 now, or $60. But the speaker part of it is not really very usable. And it has some reliability issues. But, if you're on a budget, it might be okay. Sipura, which was just bought by Linksys, that has another budget phone. That works a little bit better than the Grandstream, but it also has speakerphone issues. Then you move up the ladder. You have the Snome 360. Snome, I think, is a German company. Makes good phones. Uniden, Astra, these are well-known brands in the US. And finally, you can use soft phones. The SJ phone is a soft phone. So now you have a lot of flexibility. You can put a soft phone on your laptop, travel to Tokyo, and you'll still have an extension off of your PBX. So that is very powerful with voice over IP. You can take your laptop and soft phone anywhere with you in the world and still appear as extension number XXX to the outside world off your company PBX. By the way, if you don't like your laptop and a soft phone, you can take a regular hard phone with you too. Same thing. The load test turned out to be really successful. They first started with 150 soft phones. They made thousands of calls right from the get-go, right from when we started when we deployed it. The conferencing did induce some CPU spikes, but that was cured later on by we put some more RAM in the server, and it was fine. Now they have conferences with 30, 40, 50 users, no problem. Oh, that's another great thing about the Asterisk. There's a built-in conference bridge. All right, so with passwords and pins and everything. You dial in and they ask for your pin and, conference. This system has a theoretical limit I'm calculating at 1,000 simultaneous internal calls. So in conclusion, I would say that Asterisk is ready for large-scale enterprise deployment. It is scalable. It distributes well. It can be made highly available and fault-tolerant, and significant cost savings are possible with this system. I think I'd probably conclude a little bit early, but I'll open up the floor to any questions or. Yes. Other VoIP providers are serving residential customers, right? So it's more complicated. We own the PBX, so we have the algorithms to map the phone extensions to the locations, and then we send that data inside the trunk to the emergency dispatchers. Yeah. Yes, that's true. Then it would be a problem. But then we'd have to have another piece of software where they register their location with the database. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Actually, the way the mapping is done right now is we don't use the extension of the phone, because they can take their phone now and move across town with it. What we do is we take the IP address of the phone, which is much more tied to the switch, local switch, and the building it's in. Yeah. We're in New Jersey, not far from New York City. No, but I'd love to. I have technicians who are like itching at the they're chafing at the bit to come out here and do an installation. So, um, yeah, there's something called Dundee. Dundee. Dundee will revolutionize. I mean, if that gets adopted on a mass scale, goodbye phone company forever. I mean, because essentially groups of collaborating companies or whatever can basically decide that it's going to be free phone service between the companies because they all have asterisk boxes running Dundee, and they can handle each other's outbound calls. Let's say all of a sudden my phone lines die, and I have a relationship with your business across town, and I say, well, can I use your lines if mine? And it's all possible. Or any across the country. Yeah, yeah. It doesn't it it doesn't exactly right. Yeah, it's this is truly disruptive technology. This is quite exciting. I think I haven't even scratched the surface of all the features that are possible with this thing. Sure. Skepticism still. What was the thing that limited Linux's widespread adoption in the corporate world and the government world? It was new. It was a little bit fear, uncertainty, and doubt spread by the incumbents and things like that. But yeah, right. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. In other words, don't get rid of your existing system, but use this as an adjunct. You know, tie your PBX to this one. Put the hang any new users, give them SIP phones. Hang the phones off the new PBX, and then gradually you can migrate. Yeah, it doesn't have to be what's called a forklift upgrade. uh, does, it doesn't being open helps. No, it doesn't have to be open for that. But being open does help in other ways, like voicemails being transferred across both systems and things like that. They all have they all have T1 interfaces. Yes. Yeah. This one is a hybrid. By the way, the reason it's called asterisk is because Mark Spencer thought that the star in Unix is the wildcard character, which means all. So he wanted this system literally to address all endpoints. So it addresses IP endpoints, both on the phone side and the carrier side. So you don't have to deal with the phone company when you buy this PBX at all. You can get IP service as your only outbound trunk service and not have any phone lines or anything. And you'll still have a phone number and you'll have a PBX and everything. Plus, of course, it handles all the traditional phones. So traditional phone lines and T1s plug in. Traditional phones plug in. And literally everything plugs in. Yeah, in between the two servers, it's IAX. Yes. Yeah, I'm impressed with the level of knowledge about Asterisk in the that's pretty good. That shows that I think that it's just a matter of time before it starts really gaining traction and really taking serious market share away from the incumbents. Everybody's complaining about the costs of Cisco and yeah. Yeah, that's true. By the way, this thing also has automatic call distribution, meaning if you have a set of agents, calls can be queued to those agents, and you'll be hearing announcements about your X in line and all this kind of music on hold, everything. It's all free. It's scary. If I were Avaya, I'd be scared right now. An Asterisk system? Yeah. No, I did not bring one with me, unfortunately, because I don't know. I was carrying an IP phone would be. But on the switch infrastructure, you mean? Oh yeah, right. No, they used existing switches. No special setup, nothing. Nope, no worries. If they wanted the power over Ethernet, yeah, then you put in the mid spans, but those are adjuncts to the switches. You don't have to buy power over Ethernet switches. You know. Right. This particular town is not realizing any such cost savings because it's all within one local area code. But we do have other customers that implemented this specifically for that. We have customers where the main corporate headquarters is in the US, and then they have technical staff in India. And they do toll avoidance all the way from the calls to India to the US. And the people in India are extensions of the US PBX. All seamless. Any other questions? Yeah, I mean, I think what's on the plate? I mean, they're constantly striving to make, for example, Dundee, I think, will be much more supported, in the next release. Kind of almost experimental at this stage, but I think it'll be a full-fledged product at that point. The conference bridge keeps getting work done to it. In fact, we're probably going to do. We have our own conference bridge product built around this, where we built our own GUI around the bridge. We're enhancing the GUI so that secretaries can reserve conference rooms and things like that, and the conference rooms last for a certain length of time, and automatically everybody gets kicked out at the end, things like that. We're working on the conference bridge aspects of it. These custom applications, the mass outbound dialers, these are all works in progress as well. The ACD, multiple call routing, skills-based routing with agents, that has a lot. That sky's the limit with the new features that you can get the system. Yeah. Very good question. It's hard to get exact numbers. They have an annual conference called AstriCon, which the last one drew 600 people. Okay, but that doesn't. From that, I don't know how to extrapolate the installed base. Is it 10,000 now? Probably. I know the software itself has been downloaded more than 200,000 times. Okay. So, but that could be hobbyists doing it for their home system. I think there's a lot of home users of this. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. They have that. Mark has something which he calls the ex-girlfriend filter, which he programs his dial plans so that if it's a call from a number that he doesn't want to take, it sounds busy tone. I mean, it actually sounds like the number is not valid. So the congestion tone, which is so all these applications are possible. You can basically program your system to do whatever you want with it. So yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. But now there are companies making clones of those Digium cards, and sometimes doing it better than Digium themselves. Sangoma is a yes, yes. Cards are relatively cheap for what you get. I mean, you can get a card that supports 4 T1s, 92 conversations for now. The price has dropped below 2,000. It's 1,500 or so. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah. 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 There's long distances. I mean, that's in jeopardy. And I don't know, this whole model where people, these legacy PBX vendors, where they charge for their installations and things like that. I mean, imagine if you could bundle the service with sort of automatic configuration in a sense. Then you could almost sell these small PBXs the same way Dell sells the PCs. Direct sales. You order your little PBX and it comes in a box, and you plug it in. You don't have to plug in any phone lines even, because the VoIP outbound is already there. And then you plug in your extensions. You don't have to configure those either because they're all automatically sensed, and you're up and running with no third-party expertise, which is exactly what made Dell succeed, because they realized that you don't need third parties to install PCs. I don't know. I don't know if that's too far-fetched, but I'm kind of thinking that that's all going to be possible in the not too near future. You think it's this year? Yeah. 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 Well. I don't know. I don't. Disruptive and telcos just don't go together. I worked with a telco for many, many years, and things move extremely slowly. Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, that's right. I mean, when I worked at AT&T, the top management used to get bonuses not by how much they could sell or what kind of innovation that they made. They used to get their bonuses based on how much influence they could peddle with the FCC to get, the advantages that they needed out of the government. So they're constantly dealing with the way they could improve the bottom line would be to, for example, try to abolish the tariffs that the local phone companies, were charging them, or make them smaller. Those things would have the biggest impacts on their bottom line, not necessarily, there's anything disruptive like this. They would not embrace any of this unless. Although I have to say now AT&T has Call Vantage, which is an IP service. I hear it's pretty good. But it's definitely cannibalizing everything else that they're doing. Yeah. Right. Yes. 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 Right. Yeah, I know. SBC, it's really funny how that works. I've been through this whole cycle. I mean, I joined that company, right at divestiture. So I've seen the whole loop of what happened and everything like that. Who would have thought? I mean, but I think, yeah, yeah, a lot of bad decisions. A lot of, anything else? Any other questions? Yeah, sure. We have demos of, I mean, you can connect to our Sigman GUI into Asterisk, and you can see a live system even. So, um, yeah, I should, I put this website on in the beginning. It's softelinc.com. And all our contact information is on there, and you can feel free to send an email to info@softelinc.com. Go through any of these online demos. Well, we're small, but we're growing. But we need to, this year I think is going to be a pivotal year for us. We need to get more traction so that we can. It's going to happen. We're seeing a lot of interest. Okay? Oh, sure. I'm sure there are, but they tend to be carrier-type companies. So, for example, companies that are offering VoIP service are using the Asterisk internally as a platform, but you'll never see it. What you see is your typical Vonage-type service. Okay? Very few companies are like ours where we're actually trying to push it as a PBX. And that's kind of because, I don't know, you need to add all of these different things, this expertise, onto the Linux platform. You have to have the Linux expertise. Then you need to be able to add the things on top of the current front end to make it more user-friendly, to make it more robust, more scalable. And I think many people are not willing to commit those kinds of resources to start a company on, but I am because I think it's fun. Yes, that's also true. Yeah, I did my duty at Avaya and Lucent and all that for many years. So, but yeah, I'm willing to talk to anybody who basically needs a new phone system that they're not happy with, and that especially people who have a lot of Centrix phones and they're paying tons of money every year. I'll be happy to try to help them save money. So. And not just save money, but double their capacity and give them whole new features that they never had before. Sure. Yeah. Yes. Not really, because we qualify the network. The routers have to have some QoS built in, and hasn't been an issue so far from what we've seen. The codecs are all really well done now, and they do the job very well. Yeah, so feel free to send, if you have any other questions, send me an email or give me a call. That softelinc.com is the website. Okay. Thanks very much. I had a lot of fun speaking here, and it was nice to have you all attend.